The streets were unusually quiet that evening, the kind of silence that makes every footstep echo louder than usual. Officer Daniels, a veteran cop with years of service behind him, was on his routine patrol, scanning the neighborhood for anything out of place. He had seen a lot in his career: chaos, heartbreak, even the occasional miracle, but nothing prepared him for the tiny shadow that started following him that night. At first, he barely noticed. A faint sound of paws tapping against the cracked pavement seemed insignificant compared to the hum of distant traffic.
But when he slowed down, the sound slowed too.
When he stopped, it stopped. Confused, he turned around, and that's when he saw it. A small, trembling puppy, no bigger than a shoebox, with eyes wide and glistening under the streetlights. Daniels crouched down, extending his hand. "Hey there, little guy, where did you come from?" he murmured softly, expecting the puppy to shy away. But instead, the pup trotted forward, tail wagging nervously, as if begging him for attention. Something about those eyes, desperate, pleading, almost human, made his chest tighten. This wasn't just a stray looking for food. This was different. The puppy let out a faint whimper, circling his legs, nudging at his boots, as if trying to lead him somewhere. Daniels felt a strange chill run down his spine. Dogs were smart, sure, but this one seemed to have a purpose. Against every instinct to brush it off as coincidence, he decided to follow. As he walked, the pup scurried ahead, stopping every few steps to look back and ensure he was still following. Its tiny frame was barely visible in the dim light, but those glowing eyes kept pulling him forward. The alleyways grew narrower, darker, and more unsettling. Daniel's training told him this was reckless, following an animal into the shadows, but something stronger than logic kept him moving. Finally, the puppy stopped. It stood still, ears perked, staring at a battered dumpster pressed against a brick wall. The officer frowned, scanning the area. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual, just trash bags, broken bottles, and the stale stench of the city. But then he heard it. A faint noise, almost inaudible. A whimper, but not from the puppy. Daniels froze. His heart pounded as he moved closer, pushing aside the garbage with gloved hands. And then his eyes widened. Beneath the debris, curled up in a worn-out blanket, was another puppy. This one even smaller, weaker, and barely breathing. Its fragile chest rose and fell in shallow gasps, as if each breath might be its last. The standing pup darted forward, pawing desperately at its sibling, licking its face as though begging it to wake up. Daniels felt his throat tighten. He wasn't just looking at an abandoned animal. He was staring at a bond so raw, so pure, it pierced right through the armor of his years in law enforcement. He quickly scooped up the frail puppy, cradling it against his chest. Its body was frighteningly cold, its heartbeat faint. The loyal sibling barked anxiously, circling his boots, desperate for him to do something. Daniels swallowed hard, whispering to himself, "Stay with me, little one. Don't you give up on me now." With urgency in his steps, he rushed back toward his squad car. The loyal pup ran alongside him, never once falling behind. Daniels had seen countless emergencies in his life, but none had hit him quite like this. He wasn't rescuing strangers tonight. He was saving a family. Inside the car, he turned on the heater, wrapping the weaker puppy in his own jacket. The other pup jumped onto the seat, pressing itself against its sibling, refusing to be separated even for a second. Daniels watched in silence as the stronger one nudged and licked the weaker, its tiny body trembling with determination. Minutes stretched into eternity. Daniels kept one hand on the steering wheel, the other gently stroking the fragile pup, silently praying it would cling to life. Every shallow breath felt like a victory, every small movement a miracle. And then it happened. The faint whimper grew louder. The little chest began to rise and fall with more strength. Its eyes fluttered open, weak but alive. Daniels felt a rush of relief crash over him. He wasn't a man who cried easily. Years on the force had hardened him. But in that moment, tears blurred his vision. He turned his head away, pretending it was just the sting of the heater's warm air. But deep down, he knew the truth. The loyal puppy looked up at him, tail wagging, eyes shining with gratitude as if it understood everything. Daniel's heart broke and healed all at once. In a world full of cruelty, this tiny creature had refused to give up on its sibling, had sought out a stranger in uniform, and had trusted him with the most important mission of its little life. Daniels whispered, his voice shaking, "You saved your brother. You really did." The puppy barked softly, almost like a response. The car ride ended at the nearest animal clinic, lights buzzing as Daniels carried both pups inside. The staff rushed forward, taking the fragile one into immediate care. Daniels stood there, exhausted yet overwhelmed, as the stronger pup pawed at his boots again, this time not leading him into darkness, but anchoring him in gratitude. As the minutes passed, news came back from the vet. The smaller pup was weak, dehydrated, but alive. With care, it would recover. Daniels felt his chest swell with relief. He sat down on the clinic's bench, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to fully break down. His tears fell freely, not out of sorrow, but out of a powerful, unshakable reminder of loyalty, love, and the unspoken bond that could exist even in the smallest of creatures. And as the puppy curled up beside him, head resting on his shoe, Daniels realized something profound. Sometimes heroes wear uniforms, but sometimes heroes have fur, wagging tails, and hearts bigger than anyone could imagine. The clinic's waiting room was bathed in sterile white light, but for Officer Daniels, the place felt like a cathedral. The kind of silence where every heartbeat, every whisper of breath, carried sacred weight. He sat stiffly on the plastic chair, hands clasped so tight his knuckles had turned pale. At his feet, the loyal puppy pressed against his boots, refusing to leave his side. Every so often, Daniels glanced at the closed door of the treatment room, his chest heavy with anticipation. He had faced gunfire, high-speed chases, and nights darker than nightmares, but none of those had rattled him like this. Tonight, the fate of one tiny life seemed heavier than all the burdens he had ever carried. The door creaked open, and the vet stepped out. Daniels shot to his feet. "How is he?" His voice cracked. The vet gave a small smile. "Still weak, but stable. It's a miracle he made it this far. Honestly, if you hadn't brought him in when you did, he wouldn't have survived the night." Daniels let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. The relief was overwhelming, like being pulled out of deep water just before drowning. He looked down at the loyal pup, who wagged its tail furiously, eyes shining as if it understood every word. "He fought hard," the vet continued, "but it's clear he wasn't alone. That other pup must have kept him warm, kept him company. Animals have bonds we can't fully comprehend." Daniel's gaze softened. He crouched, rubbing the pup's ears gently. "You didn't just find me, did you? You carried him here, step by step, on your tiny shoulders." His voice trembled. "You're braver than most people I know." The puppy barked once, a sharp sound that echoed through the sterile hallway. It was as if he was proud to be acknowledged. Daniels chuckled through wet eyes, the heaviness in his chest easing for the first time all night. When the smaller pup was finally brought out, wrapped in a soft towel, Daniel's heart nearly burst. Its eyes were half open, sleepy but alive, and when its sibling leaned in, they touched noses gently. That tiny gesture was enough to bring a fresh wave of tears to Daniel's eyes. He turned away, wiping them quickly, embarrassed at how much emotion had overtaken him. But the truth was undeniable. Something inside him had shifted forever. The vet suggested keeping the pups overnight, but Daniels couldn't shake the image of them shivering in the cold alley, clinging to each other for survival. He wanted to ensure they never felt that fear again. With a quiet determination, he signed the adoption papers right there in the clinic. He didn't even hesitate. When he carried them out into the night, the city lights seemed softer, the world quieter, as if everything had paused to honor this moment. He placed the two pups gently on the passenger seat, and for the first time, his squad car didn't feel like just a tool of duty. It felt like a sanctuary. As he drove, the stronger pup curled protectively around its sibling, eyes blinking sleepily, but filled with peace. Daniels kept stealing glances, his heart swelling each time. In the silence of that ride, He thought about the countless times he'd been called to scenes of tragedy, the faces he couldn't save, the people he couldn't protect. But tonight, he had saved something. 2 little lives that might never have had a chance without him. And yet, deep inside, he knew he hadn't been the hero. The real hero was the small creature sitting proudly beside its sibling, the one who had never given up, never stopped searching for help. That kind of loyalty wasn't taught, it was born out of love. When he reached his home, Daniels carried the pups inside with the care of a father holding newborns. His house, usually silent and empty after long shifts, suddenly felt alive. He placed the weaker pup on a warm blanket by the fireplace and watched as the stronger one nestled against it. They were inseparable, their bond unshakable. Sitting back, Daniels found himself reflecting on his own life. He had dedicated himself to service, to protecting others, but along the way, he had built walls around his heart. Too many losses, too many nights alone, had left him hardened. But tonight, those walls cracked. Tonight, 2 tiny creatures reminded him of something he had forgotten, that love, loyalty, and trust were the most powerful forces in the world. As the firelight flickered, he whispered softly, "You found me for a reason, didn't you?" The pup lifted its head, tail tapping gently against the floor, as if to say yes. Hours passed, but Daniels couldn't bring himself to leave their side. Every breath from the smaller pup, every wag of the other's tail, became music in the silence of his home. He realized then that this wasn't just a rescue. It was a rebirth for them and for him. Word of the story began to spread. A fellow officer, seeing Daniels with the puppies at roll call the next morning, snapped a picture. Within hours, the image of a hardened cop with 2 fragile pups in his arms began circulating online. People shared it, commented on it, and soon the story went viral. Strangers from all over wrote messages of gratitude, praising the loyalty of the puppy who never gave up and the officer who listened when so many others might have walked away. Daniels didn't care about the attention. All he cared about was the sight of those 2 little faces greeting him when he returned home. The stronger one, always alert, always protective. The weaker one, slowly growing stronger each day. Together, they filled his once empty life with a purpose far deeper than his badge. One evening, as he sat on his porch watching them chase each other across the yard, Daniels felt something he hadn't in years: peace. He realized that sometimes, the most profound lessons didn't come from books or mentors, but from the smallest voices, the tiniest creatures who couldn't speak at all. The loyal pup, who had once wandered the streets in desperation, now bounded freely across the grass, no longer afraid, no longer alone. And the weaker sibling, once on the brink of death, now barked playfully, stronger every day. Daniels leaned back, closing his eyes. The memory of that first night replayed in his mind, the soft paw taps behind him, the pleading eyes, the desperate whimper. It was a night that had changed everything. A night that proved that heroes don't always wear badges. Sometimes, they walk on 4 legs, with tails that wag and hearts that never give up. And as the sun dipped low, painting the sky with colors of gold and fire, Daniels whispered, almost to himself, "You didn't just save your brother. You saved me too." The pups barked in unison, running toward him, and in that moment, surrounded by love and loyalty so pure it hurt, Daniels knew one thing for certain. This was the beginning of a story he would carry in his heart forever.